Friday Night Primetime has made its way down under, and tonight from the Winton Motor Speedway, one of two races will unfold. And under the fog, there are going to be 20 GR86 all battling in this fixed series competition. Welcome along to RaceSpotTV and to the Butt Kicker GR Cup. Delighted to have your company once again as we continue to follow along in our journey across of the iRacing official competitions. I'm Juna Kankipati, joined alongside by Dara Thacker as we get ready to go racing. And Dara, I'm just hoping when we look at these weather conditions, it's not a sign of what is to come in terms of racing here today.
Yeah, we had very torrential conditions at Brands Hatch last week. We've got fog absolutely all over the track here at Winton, so it's not been the best set of races in terms of weather for this GR Cup. But hopefully, if we can make out the cars on track, we should see some good action.
Yeah, let's take a look at that schedule, of course, because it's going to see us return down under at the end of the season. Sandown out and Mount Panorama to close things off at the end of May. But after this, we head back over to first Europe, then South America, and then, well, what a North American adventure we're really going to be in for. Sebring, Daytona, and the motor layout of Daytona as well. Long Beach, Road Atlanta. I mean, it's such an interesting schedule, but tonight, tight and twisty, Dara, that is what the challenge is at hand.
Yeah, a few of these tracks are tight and twisty. It's a good element of this series, really, where we see some tracks where it challenges the drivers' moves are a little bit harder to come by, but they're going to have to pick their way through somehow. But it's a great-looking calendar overall, isn't it?
It is. I'm looking forward to seeing as well when we head to the likes of Road Atlanta how these cars, of course, compare to the Super Formula Lights that we've got coming up in a few moments' time. Don't forget, of course, double header on RaceSpotTV. We'll watch this race unfold. We'll have a quick break and then we'll go racing in the Super Formula Lights, which is also fixed setup competitions. Drivers don't have to dial in setups, and last week we did see some drivers actually do the double and join us across of both races. Qualifying underway right now. We're heading into the final moments of that in many ways because drivers are already setting their second and final flying lap times. Right now it's Marcus Amand with a 1:31.14 that's got the pole by over a tenth and a half from Ryan Woodrow.
Yeah, it's looking quite tight at the top. A few more gaps forming a little bit further behind, but as long as it's close at the top, we're surely going to get some fantastic racing as we see Garcia now coming up towards... Oh, sorry, this is Dennis Marinos coming up towards the line. Can he improve on his P3? We'll see, but it looks like he's going to stay where he is for now. But yeah, oh no, I spoke too soon. He's gone fastest.
Sometimes you never know. You got to wait for the timing to just make its mind up. Shot of Fernando Alonso, by the way, in the background there. That was not ominous at all in these conditions, but it's a big improvement. Almost breaks into the 1:29s, but we're heading on to, I think, what will be final attempts from these drivers in this qualifying session. That's Matthew Brown that's just run to the line. Juan Aragones is going to pull up before he breaks the timing beam. Clearly not happy with the time.
Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't planning to set a fast lap time, maybe just a bit of a protest on himself for the lap time he was going to be setting, but not ideal early on in the evening. We've got David Asbury trying to set a quicker lap time than he has so far, a couple of seconds off, but he's just starting his final flying lap, he'd say, as he comes through the opening corners.
I think he actually is just doing some practice now. He's already set his two fast attempts. Now it's right on board out of Honda corner. You can see how much of the runoff they can use on the left, and these are wide curbs at times as well, flat curbs as well. So through Nissan corner onto the Foot West straight and then in through turn 5, which is one of the few parts of the track that doesn't actually have a name associated with it. Don't roll too much speed though in through rollover corner because you're onto the brakes. Dab hard as well. You just see the front drop in through Penrite back towards a long sweeping left-hander. You can see how much of the curb on the inside it rises up, and Asbury actually clips it, just rotates the car a little bit more, and then get out of this corner onto the power as aggressively as possible because one of the few actual straights that you've got with some length to it.
Yeah, and it's Shannon straight down towards turn 10. We were talking about these corner names before we started the broadcast and how fantastic they are and confusing they will be for us to remember, particularly with some of the sponsored corners. But David Asbury, he's coming up to the final few corners now, down at 11 and 12. 11, of course, Advanced Petroleum corner. But yeah, starting P15 for him. I think he's going to struggle from there.
Ran out of time to give us a run through the final couple of corners, but the drivers will get their instructions to roll to the starting grid. And Unfortunately, we don't have a full formation lap to work through, so instead we can go straight to the racing with little time for the drivers to build some temperature into the tires. Here's a look at how they'll line up, though. It is going to be Dennis Marinaris in the number 5 machine. A 1:30.004 punches his way to the front with Marcus Amand alongside, and a truly international grid on display with Ryan Woodrow out of Pennsylvania alongside Marcus Dalbom from Scandinavia. Paul Sorrentino and then Guillaume Agosto round out your top 6, and hoping not to be dunking in through those open couple of corners. Christian Braun and then Matthew Brown share row 4 with Ander Allende and Fabian Wozniak on the edge of your top 10. Huber Borbelli and Juan Aragones 11th and 12th, with hopefully not unlucky 13th being Darwin Romero in a dive boom machine, not dive bomb, in the number 1. Anthony Santos, David Asbury, and then Sasha Ridelli round out your top 16 with just one more driver with a time on the board. Really not a representative time, if we're being honest. Francisco Garcia, and then Enzo Ramos, 18th position for him, and 2 more drivers down the back, Ethan Cook and Phil Wolnick round out the 20 GR86s that will do battle. And these are cars that can battle closely, but let's be honest, Dara, at a track like this, not sure how closely we're really going to see them be.
Yeah, we saw some moves last week at a very damp Brands Hatch. We might see something similar again, but, you know, it's foggy, it's difficult to see, and I think there's going to be lots of challenges for these guys.
I mean, the challenge for us is going to be figure out who is who, especially when you look from up above. But the one thing that you will, of course, recognize is these drivers don't have it so bad down on the ground itself. So 15 minutes of racing, it's not a long race by any means, so drivers really have got to get the hammer down early.
Yeah, they don't have long to be messing around, really, trying to work out who they're fighting, when they need to overtake, because they've got to get these moves done very, very early. And they're just really going to have to move forward, especially if you're not qualified where you want to be. You need to get forward as quickly as you can.
Love some of the liveries that we've got on display. Wish that the weather would see us be able to pick them out just that little bit more. But pace cars off and away. We're racing in week 3 of the Butt Kicker GR Cup. It's fixed series competition. And in towards the opening corner, a couple of flicks they will go. Single file at the front, side by side behind, and already some spins. That's what you expect. It's Christian Braun that gets the worst of it. A look to the inside there from Marcus Amand. Backs out of it, thinks better of it. But as they filter into the middle sector, into where it gets really, really twisty, just one driver in trouble.
Yeah, the front guys got away very nicely indeed. Marinos going to try and hold off Amand as much as he can, but look at this. Look at how close they are through this middle part of the lap already. Of course, not the best start for Christian Braun at the back there, because you've not got enough time to claim at really any positions back. As Zamano back up the inside. Fantastic move early on. That's
not necessarily where we thought the passes would be made, but in through 8, they're still side by side, and your former race leader now left on the outside and in the grass. He has to defend from Ryan Woodrow now as Amand takes the point, sweeping out of 9 onto Shannon straight, and now a heavy braking zone into the northern BM corner lies in front. You can see as well behind, driver in the grass, that's Francisco Garcia. So 2 drivers in trouble, everyone else surviving and keeping on the tarmac as they run back toward the final couple of corners.
Yeah, it's not a very thick piece of tarmac either, so you've got to be very careful where you put your tyres. But Dennis Marinos now having to defend from Ryan Woodrow into the final couple of corners, and that is not the line there from Magnus Darblom as he comes through turn 11. You've got to be oh so careful, especially with the grass and the gravel so close to you through those corners. But we're seeing some great racing early on. Not long in the race, of course, we've only got 13 minutes left, and we've only just started, but they're 3 wide towards turn 1.
It's not bad. I mean, that camera shot shows that they do back out of it. You can see the headlights peeking through as well. It's going to be a Allende alongside with Romero, and turn 1's the site of more motorsports news drama. One driver's been off and really just been lost by the camera there. I think let's go ahead then and start taking a look at the sequence of replays, and it all started as we headed off into the opening corner.
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult line to really pick out. Of course, with it being so foggy, it's difficult to see exactly where you want to be braking. The inside line, a little bit of a clip there for Christian Braun. And yeah, it's just not where you need to be. It's unfortunate, especially at the start of the race, and he's going to be ruining that mistake, or even the moment particularly. But he's got a lot of work to do from 17th.
Ooh. And that's what happened to Garcia. You could see he just got absolutely chopped the nose off as he went through the long right-hander and then back into turn 1. Sausage curbs. Romero, unfortunately, I was wondering, unlucky 13th. He wasn't the cause of the dive. He was the cause of the boom.
Yes, oh, you can see him bouncing over the curbs there, and that is a big old collision with those three guys in at turn 1 and turn 2. But Marcus Amand isn't going to be bothered about those guys fighting away. He is trying to pull away from Marinos at the front of the field, and he's doing a nice job of it so far, coming through the final corner to complete his second lap in this race. And we're probably looking at another, just 6, maybe, and 7th as well. Oh, but there's a spin. That's Sasha Rodelli.
And, well, watch the drama as they now try and just sort it out of the final corner. Single file finally they'll get, but now better momentum gives the inside as well. 3 wide as well in front. Oh, heavens above. They're deciding they want to fight in these terrible, terrible conditions for our poor camera crew. Single file once more and all the way through the field. This is causing big separation. And so all of these battle packs, 6 cars at the front that Dara are starting to break away.
Yeah, and as they come in towards the foreground of the shot, we can see a little bit more where those cars are placing themselves rather than just the headlights. But looking at these battles, I mean, you could just see there David Asprey. He started P15, didn't he? But he's trying to make his way through on Juan Aragon's up for P8. Great start from him. You can see, I believe, the best mover in the field. Actually, it was for Niklas Wolnick, who's up 7 from the back of the grid. So some good starts so far.
What a name that is as well. Proper name. I was... having a chat with, I went shopping earlier today and someone was saying that my name sounded like a video game character, and I didn't disagree with him in some ways when we started talking a bit more. You can see left side of the screen, Anthony Santos losing some positions, and now the commentator's curse is just struck on Phil Wolnick, who's, I think, rejoining the track there as we see the shot. But in these sort of conditions, Dara, it's not something that traditionally on iRacing we would have seen. We may not have rain today, but this iRacing weather system still throwing up some surprises, as now it's 3 cars at the front starting to run away.
Yeah, if you can just about see those 3 cars as they emerge in the mist. Marinos, he's really quite close on the back of Marcus Amand, and he's got to be feeling the pressure, surely, the leader at this stage. I mean, Marinos did have the fastest time in qualifying. You'd probably say he has the fastest 1-lap pace on that basis. It's just whether you can make the move, and at Winton, it's going to be difficult, and we're already a third of the way through this race.
Yes, and again, after this, we fly our way very quickly on over to Road Atlanta, to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Very much looking forward to seeing the Super Formula lights break themselves out there. Going to see plenty of, I think, slingshot action out of turn number 7. We ride on board with 3rd place Ryan Woodrow as we head on through this middle sector, and you're just seeing at work the hands, just not too aggressive at the wheel. Now, we are going to see some official GR86 esports action in the world of iRacing in the next couple of weeks, so I think we're going to see more and more drivers using this sort of series as a place to develop their racecraft and build those wheel-to-wheel skills. Right now, what we're just seeing is the pressure being built and no one breaking, at least just yet. And you say 15-minute race, it's pretty short. One thing I think that we don't have to worry about too much is if you do have plenty of contact, Dara, you don't have to worry about the incident limit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to your point about people learning the car, this kind of championship is fantastic. Short 50-minute races around so many different types of racetrack all the way around the globe really just mean that you can learn the car through racing. You can really learn the tracks, learn how to feel the car whilst learning how to go wheel to wheel, which is fantastic for these guys going forward. I know it's Patricio Garcia dropping towards the back as he's now onto the pit lane. So unfortunate for him as we look at Ryan Woodrow now still lurking behind these top 2, but the top 3, like you mentioned before, they've really pulled out a gap, and Marcus Dahlblom, he's on his own at the moment.
Yeah, he is very much by himself. You can see as well that certain parts of the track do look a little bit more foggy than others as we close on that halfway mark. It's here Woodrow just bounced it off the rev limiter there for a second as he didn't want to shift up and give himself maybe a bit too much speed through the corner. Wide potentially for Marcus Amand. It was just a mistake from your pole sitter as well on that opening lap, right? To give the room to maybe be a bit too tentative on the cold tires, and you know, Amand very much took advantage. So you feel like even though it stayed pretty close so far, if you want to make a move happen, it's going to have to take some physicality.
Yeah, and at a track like Winton, it can only take just that little mistake early on, and then it's almost impossible to make the move back all the way through the race. So very good and very astute racing there from Marcus Amand, and he will hope to capitalise with the win. But Dennis Marinos, he's not going to let him get too far in front. And I mean, even the car numbers, reverse order in this top 3, 7, 5 and then 2. So I'm sure they're really going to be eager to get through on each other.
The great thing as well is now we've got 2 licenses on iRacing, one for the sports cars and one for the open wheelers. You know, you'd think over time we'll see more and more of an equal measure being actually applied, whereas right now I think plenty will say that their I rating doesn't necessarily reflect their ability in a particular type of car. Now, as these three just continue to hold each other lockstep at the front, still plenty of drivers keeping each other honest further back. Here's the battle for what is now 8th position. David Asbury up 6 spots and fighting to get up one more.
Yeah, he's really had a fantastic race so far. I mean, after Nicholas Wolnick fell back down the order, he is now the best mover in the field, along with Ethan Cook down in P13. But look at him trying to find his way through on Aragon. This is they run their way so close to the back of that Castrol liveried car in front of him, but he just can't find his way through, and it just shows how tight and twisty this circuit can be. Yeah,
and I love as well that, you know, even with this sort of almost 3 kilometer layout that does twist and turn, it's relatively lengthy laps by virtue of these cars not having the most power off the corner. You can see how close David Asbury got there on corner exit, running into the back. And as much as this is a 2-car fight, they're still squabbling behind, and somewhere in all of that fog, there's 3 cars fighting for what is now 5th position. They're 3 seconds off the back of Malgus Dalblom, who last lap did lose almost half a second to these drivers. Won't matter so much as they're almost dunked off into the gravel.
Yeah, but it just shows how tight the track is. A massive error there from Matthew Brown, really getting the rear end, stepping out, but he couldn't, or even Paul Sorrentino, I should say, but he couldn't be overtaken here as Hubert Borbelli is going to try and come up the inside of Matthew Brown down at turn 1, emerging through the haze. Can he make this one stick? He's bouncing over the curb. Oh, and they just avoid contact, but they are launching themselves over these curbs.
It's amazing stuff, right? The willingness that they have to really fight. Check back to your lead, where still 3 within 8/10 or so, coming down to the final 5 minutes, which should mean, and never trust a commentator's math. I was having this argument with Lewis McLeod yesterday here on RaceSpotTV in the Porsche Esports Canada realm. I'm going to make a bold prediction. 3 laps to go next time by.
Yeah, well, let's have a look. They're going to come... Yeah, I think they're going to be 3 laps to go. Oh, that's not going to be good. Oh, and that's Marcus Amann going around. Oh, that's all going to come undone for him. And I don't know if there was contact, but Marinos is going to stroll into the lead.
It's the leader that spins, and now just 2 left to fight. And Woodrow's been sitting. Is there damage on any of those cars? We'll have to find a look on the replay to tell us a bit more, but here's the look to the inside and chopped off on the run down to the penultimate corner. It's a 2-way fight now for the lead, and you've got to assume that it's already been physical maybe. It's only going to get more physical.
Yeah, and it's just so unfortunate there for Marcus Amann, the Frenchman who was in the lead. Was there contact? We're going to see. He's taken a much tighter line, hasn't he, through turn 8 and just on the exit. Oh, I think there was a little bit of a nudge in the back. I think Dennis Marinos had a bit of a better exit and just gave him the slightest of taps. But when you're turning like that, there's really not much you can do, and so unfortunate for him. But Marinos and Woodrow, they're now a 2-horse race for the win.
Now Marcus has been dropped back into the fight for what will be 4th position. You can see him there behind Sorrentino's Dunkin' Donuts car. They've got lap traffic as well, so just keep that in mind. They will have some opportunities to maybe spring some surprises. Already had our surprise up towards the front. Now Woodrow has got to get a bit closer. That was the thing. It was the first time in a while that we'd seen Marinos be able to get that close to Marcus Amann, and therefore that was the opportunity. Woodrow's been hanging back a couple of car lengths or so. These are momentum cars. He's got to force the issue sooner rather than later.
Yeah, he's got to make sure he finds his way left or right, but it's so difficult. We've mentioned it already, and you can just see how narrow the track is. I mean, Dennis Marinos, it really had to be a little bit of a tap in the rear to get him through and up into the lead, but Ryan Woodrow is really going to have to be, waiting for a mistake from the leader here. Maybe gets a good run, but the straights aren't really long enough for the slipstream to take effect.
Yep. Where are we going next again? It's Oschersleben. I don't know which layout of Oschersleben it is, but that'll be interesting potentially because there are some longish straights, but it's not until after that when we get to Interlagos that we're going to have a really long straight to enjoy. It's a fight here for, I guess, 12th position behind Fabian Wozniak. Ethan Cook, Christian Braun fighting as Braun, of course, down 7 spots. He's in front of Under Oland, -6. Plenty of drivers that have really not enjoyed and still trying to recover, as is your former race leader. Look at him on the back of Sorrentino.
Yeah, Sorrentino, he hasn't been under pressure all race, but here comes a man who's going to try and up the inside at turn 3, and Sorrentino just ushers him through. He doesn't really want to fight that one too hard, and Marcus Amand, he's going to try and chase after Dalblom. I don't know how close he can get. It's only going to be a lap and a half, really, now. He's just going to have to try and defend from Paul Sorrentino for P4, you'd have thought.
Yeah, I don't even think that Marcus Dalblom is going to be too worried. Next time by, it should, knock on wood, trust the commentator's math here, be 1 lap to go. I haven't really been keeping an eye on the clock when your leaders have crossed the line, so this time by we'll get that sense. But Woodrow's there. He's as close as he's ever been, if we're being honest. He's within a car length and a half. Just needs a bit more commitment, a bit more optimism, or a mistake from your race leader who goes 2 wheels off to the gravel.
Yeah, but so did Ryan Woodrow, just following the line of the leader as they run their way through. Down at turn 10, they're coming down the Falcon straight towards the final couple of corners. And you can see Woodrow taking a tight line through 11. But really, it's just about the exit through 12. And he's gone much, much wider, just trying to carry as much momentum he can. But you can see the time ticking down. This will then be the final lap of the race that they're going on to. And the chances really are running out for Ryan Woodrow now.
I'm glad I was right, at least on that. Through the S's at the start of the lap. Oh, you can see just how much Woodrow was pushing. That's what he has to do. He's got to do something that will force the issue. The problem is, it's not really in this opening sector that we think the passes will happen. It's really that middle sector, and now he's compromised himself. Loses a couple of car lengths as out of turn 4 they run. And I think at this point, all that Dennis Marinos is thinking is, Darragh, let's not make a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, he really just doesn't want to push himself over one of these curves too high. You can see 2 wheels there from Ryan Woodrow. All of these guys have been bouncing over these curves like there is no tomorrow. They're clearly not worried about the suspension of these things because they have been abusing them like they're never going to use these cars ever again, which I'm sure they won't need to worry about. Ryan Woodrow, though, he's close, but he's just not going to be close enough. And I think Marinos, unless a big mistake occurs now, surely has this one in the bag.
You're right that wear and tear is something that we don't have to think about in cars like this. You actually, you know, you're talking running costs and stuff. That's one of the few things you probably would have to worry about over the course of a season. So keeping your car off the curbs and things like that, things that you may want to do, but it's been keeping out of trouble at the fronts. And, well, what a drive it has been. Foggy conditions, but no sight of drama on the run to the line. It is going to be Pole Sitter that converts to victory, but not as simple as that here at the Winton Motor Speedway. It's Dennis Marinos winning in the Butt Kicker GR Cup Fixed Series competition, and only a quarter of a second back to Ryan Woodrow. Magnus Dalblom will grab the final spot on the podium, and then the rest of the field will come towards the line, and plenty of close battling amongst those still out on track.
Yeah, it's been fantastic racing all the way through the order. I mean, look at these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4 across the line. They were so close down just outside the top 10. But yeah, some fantastic racing on show all the way through this field. And even though it was foggy, even though this track is a little bit tight, we still saw some great overtaking.
Honestly, I think I've only commentated on legitimately 1 or 2 races here at Winton in the past. More enjoyable than I had any right to think it was going to be, and I look forward to future trips, especially if it's in this Butt Kicker GR Cup back to the Winton Motor Speedway. Of course, we have 2 more trips down under to come, but that's at the end of the season. We'll finish things off with a trip to Sandown and then to Mount Panorama. And let's be honest, we all have our fingers crossed that rain is going to be in play. Look at the race results, and then we'll flip the switch on over to the Super Formulas lights. Dennis Marinos in front of Ryan Woodrow, quarter of a second between them, but Marcus Amand might feel a little bit aggrieved that he couldn't be part of the fun. Magnus Dalblom will grab the final step of the podium at Amand's expense. Paul Sorrentino down to round out the top 5. Matthew Brown, Huber Borbelli, and then Juan Aragons through your top 8, and then David Asbury and Darwin Romero round out your top 10. David Asbury ends up being the biggest mover in the 15-minute race. Guillermo Agosto is 11th, Fabian Wozniak 12th, and Christian Broad, Underland, and Ethan Cook, the rest of your top 15. Finn Wolnick, and then Enzo Ramos, Sasha Rodelli, along with Anthony Santos, scored on your leading lap. Unfortunately, 2 laps down for Francisco Garcia at the very tail end of the field. As mentioned, though, we continue the theme of tight and twisty tracks, at least in the interim, because next week, 7 days from today, Darragh, we're heading on over to Oschersleben, a track infamous, not famous, infamous for a commentator's thoughts on what should be done to the track designer at turn number 1.
Yeah, it's an interesting circuit. I'm looking forward to it. Clearly, we're not too worried about the air miles in the GR Butt Kicker Cup going from Australia over to Germany, back across to Brazil. So lots of air miles, lots of fantastic tracks to look forward to. And Oschersleben, it's going to be no different in terms of racing than what we've seen before. And if it's dry, then it might be even better.
I think the great thing is when it comes to iRacing, right, is the air mile bill, as it were, totally free. And I just want to give a bit of a shout out, a bit of a plug right now to the fact that we do have something quite fun coming up in just under a month's time. April 20th, we are going to have VCO Infinity, where we're going to maximize the use of virtual air miles. We're going to be bouncing around 5 different tracks, 5 different cars, all for 24 hours. It's a 24-hour race like no other, and so make sure you join us on the VCO esports channels. But for now, that's one race in the books, still one left to come. Don't go anywhere here. Friday night primetime will be back, but this time from the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta with the Super Formula Lights.
There might be some rain coming through. We expect rain soon. Rain is close. The session has been declared wet. No sign of this rain stopping. Rain is clearing up. Rain should be gone for now. Nothing but sunshine all day.
using our air miles quite wisely. We've made the trip on over halfway across the world to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Welcome on over to the iRacing Super Formula Lights Fixed Series competition, where today these drivers get a 20-minute dash around this fantastic racing facility to enjoy. Our junior Kenki party still alongside with Dara Thacker as we get ready to be buckled in. And Dara, we were having a brief conversation about how these cars are really well suited to wheel-to-wheel racing. Of course, last week at the Hockenheim Ring, I don't know if we necessarily got to see the most from the cars, but here, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, what we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks, boy, is it going to be tantalizing.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We had some great racing at Hockenheim, but yeah, Road America, or Road Atlanta, I should say, sorry, it's a different kettle of fish. Of course, you've got the S's, then you've got the long straights, and I think it's going to be quite interesting just to see how these Super Formula Lights cars work around here, how they race, and how good it's going to be to see them going around.
It's not, necessarily a combo that you would traditionally think that the Super Formula cars will come and run at. I think part of the reason why is you don't traditionally see too many open wheel series come and race here at Road Atlanta. But I'll just say from personal experience, it does race very, very well. Breakout in IndyCar here, and it is a treat. Drivers are out on track right now for qualifying. It's Jaden Munoz, the Williams Esports driver, #1 machine, and therefore the highest I-rated driver in the field. #1 in qualifying as well. Callum Voisin's just jumped up to number 11, competed in the GB3 Championship for a couple of years, and making the step up to F3 here for 2024. Going to be interesting to see what he's going to be able to do. But one thing that I think is going to be interesting here is you see how the start kind of winds itself around. It's a pretty undulating final corner to get underway.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to really get the power down to really work out where your rivals are. If you're going to go 2, maybe even 3 wide through there if you're absolutely insane, it's going to be difficult to know exactly where the other cars are, and it can lead to a couple of incidents. But I mean, it's a tight-looking field, particularly you can see just outside the top 10 with Callum Voisin leading that pack, really Brent Ruiz. There's only a couple of tenths all the way down to P15, P16, so this could be a fantastically tight field.
Yep, no drivers, I think, out on track now looking to improve their times. This driver's getting final practice attempts onto the board. We're having a chat, actually, with some of the team over at IMSA about weather here at Road Atlanta. Now, these cars do have the weather system at play, but we're still waiting to see the rain really peak its head, and not going to see that here today, unfortunately, but we've had some pretty rain-affected Petit Le Mans in the past. You think back to 2015, the last time that a GT car won overall in the IMSA world, but you go even further back, and there are even more notable instances of things like that happening. Still, I'm a little disappointed. I've been waiting for the rain with these open-wheel machines.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point over the season we're surely going to get some precipitation in the air, but I think particularly around a track like Road Atlanta, it'd be so difficult, wouldn't it, to try these open wheel cars, particularly through the S's with all that power coursing through the wheels. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this one really, because it's a track that I think really suits these cars.
Again, it's one of those things where it doesn't necessarily you don't see it often in the real world, but like we often can do in the sim world, we can try these combos out and we can have some fun, and yes, it is going to be great. Now, qualifying officially in the books, you can see the field and the margins that we have. I think Dara's quite right in pointing out the margin that we see up towards the front, the grouping, the separation that we see. How is that all going to unfold? Well, we'll have to wait to find out, because we are ready to go racing. Let's go down trackside, run you through the starting grid. It's a stacked field of competition, and Jaden Munoz is at the front of it. Jort van Wyk is alongside, and then Kingston Himes and Gio Cortesi, 3rd and 4th positions. Andrea Frazinetti and then Andre Ackerson in the top 6 starting spots. 7th goes the way of Flo Dams, and then Gilles Hubin, 7th and 8th respectively. Marcus Luzio and then Brent Ruiz, 9th and 10th, and then Callum Voisin and Javier Soto round out the front 12. Martin Alnordas, great to see him back on RaceSpotTV in 13th. Adrian Kulaside in 14th, and Maxime Putiot, and then Ben Scattergood, 15th and 16th. Dan Hugenhorn and Lautaro Marini in the 17th and 18th positions. Martin Zierfeld and Marcello Caruso, Diego Ralla, and then Manuel Gonzalez, Alexander Wenger, and Simon Renault round out the top 24. And we're still going through the field to find Fabio Burchold in the TNT racing car with some work to do from 25th. And then the 2 drivers with no times on the board, Emil Engdahl and Danny Bray. The flying run down through the grid always produces some interesting pronunciations, but as I was mentioning, we've got some interesting starting positions for these drivers as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, they're going to have a difficult start, aren't they? But we're just going to have to wait and see how they deal with it round the bend.
Yeah, just waiting for the drivers to all get the signal down onto the grid to get going as well. You can see that the leaders are going to have a straight shot into turn 1, but opening sector, it's a difficult place to really fight side by side, and you have to assume that some drivers can have to use their head, think wisely. With just a 20-minute race ahead though, draft's going to be important. Lights are going to build, engines will rev, we're ready to go racing. Second part of our double header here for Friday night prime time. Lights are out and Jaden Munoz gets us underway. We're racing at the Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta, and look at the cars build their momentum, build the intensity on the rise up to turn 1. A dive to make it 3 wide for second spot, but it doesn't work out there. GR86 backs out of it eventually. Through turn 3, single file for the top 3, single file eventually for the top 10 or so. And what a sight it is as we plunge down into the S's.
Yeah, there were at least 2x2x2 in the mid-pack there all the way through turn 3, and they're still side by side as they're all the way through the S's now, coming back now onto the straight towards turn 6, but a fantastic run from all of these guys. I really thought that a few of these guys at the front weren't going to make it out alive after that 3 wide moment, but Munoz has got away fantastically well off the start, but we've still got side by side in behind.
Now turn 7 is tighter than 90 degrees, so it's very, very important to get a good run now. Who's blown an engine? That's Martin Alnoudis, I think. Unfortunately, his TNT racing car going to go no further, I would assume, in the race if the smoke was what we saw. Down into turn 10A and B. Let's not talk about corner numbers here to kick things off because it's a ridiculous situation. Kingston Himes tried to get on forward. Behind him, Drama. York Van Wink gets tangled up, and drama and chaos at turn 10.
Yeah, the cars are all over the road, and I think there was just a massive climbing of the curb there. Oh, and I think that's Callum Boysen, the GB3 champion, spinning around at the penultimate corner, and he is facing the wall. That's not the ideal start for him, but I do think down at the chicane, I think whoever it was mounted the curb on the inside and almost got himself stuck on top of the car in front. And from there, it was just a bit of a concertina effect all the way back, but so unfortunate for them, but it's allowed Munoz and Himes to get away.
Well, outside of the 4 drivers instantly escorted to pit lane, I wonder if everyone else has gotten through relatively. That's a very, very important word. We're talking very, very comparatively to the rest of the competition, unscathed. Let's take a look on board initially with Martin Alnoudis just heading out of turn number 7.
Yes, oh, that's not the ideal line there as we see up towards the chicane. This is the number 9 car, it seems, underneath the bridge, or number 19, I should say, diving back down the hill. And where does this incident unfold? That Mercedes liveried car coming into this chicane. Oh, yeah, you can see just bouncing over the curb and just gets stuck on the top and then reverses back onto the line. And that is not what you want to see.
That is, frankly, unacceptable. You have to just hold your line and hold your brakes. You have to avoid every instinct that tells you to move. Let's ride on board with Callum Boysen because you're going to see, I mean, look at his commitment. Great move to get move done. And then, you know, if the car holds his brakes, he probably gets through cleanly.
He does, but it's so unfortunate. So early on in the race as well, of course, only lap 1. 20 minutes is not the longest time for one of these events, but it's still enough time for you to try and make up a few more positions, but really unfortunate already for those guys caught up in the incident, and it's kind of split up the field, hasn't it? We've got the top 2, and then there's the next 2, and Flo Darm's kind of in the middle in P5, but the trains have been somewhat broken up at the moment. Yeah,
and in terms of Callum Boysen, he was one of the few drivers that was able to bring his car close to the lane. I think others had to take the immediate tow back to the box. We have another spinner, and that's an unusual place if we're being honest. That is Adrian Kulaside that's lost it at turn 6. That's a place that you don't traditionally expect the issues to come. Now, already saw Marcus Luzio get past Gio Cortese. You've seen the draft plenty strong, and so what I'm going to try and infer from that is in terms of the setup that these drivers are all having, it's a lot of downforce on it, and you're able to use the draft to slingshot your way on forward. Fight for 14th, though, sees Martin Alnoudis try to get to the inside.
Yeah, Danny Bray all the way around the outside, but Arnoldus is going to control that inside line and keep the position when all is said and done, but don't count out the two behind. Martin Zayeveld is going to try and come down the inside, making a double overtake, and he's made that one stick. What a move.
And this is why we're watching Super Formula Lights in 2024 Season 2. This is what the car can produce. They're 2x2 down through the S's on the entry in towards Turn 5 as well, a place where, let's be honest, you need to be single file. They'll finally get it all sorted out, recognize their situation, but they've already gone and lost a good 20-odd seconds to your race leaders. Jaden Munoz, by the way, has checked away. He is not going to be looking back. He's got Kingston Himes trying to keep him close, but last lap already 0.6 of a second was opened up between them. Expect that to continue to grow, and here's the draft at play once more, this time for 8th.
Yeah, you can just see the car outside of the slipstream, not really getting the run that they'd won, and that's Javier Soto. But here comes Hukendorn. He's been on a bit of a charge of late, and he's got his way through. I apologise, I think that was Axon down in P10 losing out there. And yes, Javier Soto trying to find his way a little bit further up the order. But look at this, 2x2, maybe, down in towards the chicane. These guys are really not giving it up, are they?
No, this is insanity, and great to watch, costing them time. But at the end of the day, I think they've recognised they weren't ever going to get that much further up through the field. Is there damage on any of these cars? That's something else you at some point will start to think about. That's a bit of understeer for, it was Alexander Wenger that ran just that tad wide through turn 1. That was Martin Arnoldus that did not get the optimal run out of turn 3 though. These cars clearly not, even with the amount of downforce they have, still dirty air playing its factor. And now Arnoldus having to look in the rearview mirrors once more. Check back up though into the fight for the podium spots, because I think Kingston Himes going to be under pressure as Gio Cortese closes.
Yeah, Kingston Himes really dropping off the leader here. 2.8 now, that gap, 2.9, 3 seconds growing all the time. And Gio Cortese is going to be looking at that, trying to close back in, trying to make a way through. And you can see there, actually, that was Cortese making a mistake himself, allowing Marcus Luzio to maybe have a bit of a run through this final corner towards turn 1. But it's not over for the podium, and here comes Luzio.
You can just see the overspeed. One mistake through turn 10A and 10B, and it costs you up through turn 1 as well. So now Luzio forward. We'll see if the 1.8 second advantage can be bridged. Side by side between Soto and Ackerson as through turn 1. Inside line can reign supreme. Rising up to the top of the hill though. You can see the outside, the confidence. Ackerson sweeps around and holds on to 9th.
Yeah, fantastic stuff from him as they dive their way now down through the S's, and Axon is trying to hold his way through and up into P10. You can see the replay here getting all in the gravel, all sideways. Is it going to be held? Just about, I think, by the number 20 car, but that is not going any further.
Nope, Alexander Wenger was full left hand down there as well, but I think recognized that the situation has sort of reached a critical point in time now. Swapping around slightly further up, swapping around slightly further back as well. A fixed setup competition is amazing, isn't it? In that it really does equalize the playing field.
Yeah, it means that you can't really predict what the others are going to do and try and gain a little bit of an advantage because of it. And it means that if you're going to get a slipstream advantage, your rival is going to get a slipstream advantage, as we're now seeing Luzio trying to make his way back up to P3. These two really fighting away for this final step on the podium. And Luzio's got a great run, but not quite enough for turn 3.
It's one of those races where everything that's happening on screen probably not necessarily the most important, because there's still more to happen as we head towards the second half of this race. Again, remember, this is 20 minutes as compared to the 15 minutes that the Butt Kicker GR Cup that we were watching slightly earlier on gave us. I will also say much nicer weather conditions, and I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah, it feels much more like summer, doesn't it, here at Road Atlanta, as we see these guys running their way through down one of the most important corners on the racetrack, really, if not the most, at turn 7, because you must get the exit down towards turn 10. Here comes Luzio, getting his way back through on Cortese, and he's back up to P3. These guys, you feel, they're going to be swapping positions all the way to the end.
I think they're trying to swap like it's at Indianapolis, but it's not really working for them, unfortunately. That is just the unfortunate thing. They're still 1.7 behind Kingston Himes, who's losing continued time to Jaden Munoz up front in the... it's not Williams Esports livery, because, again, they've got a brand new livery that is on display, but that is a quite nice Sahara Force India livery. So great to see the young Texan out and jumping across the different cars. I guess it is not a surprise, right? Because Jaden's traditionally, a bit of a prototype driver, Dara. I guess the thing with prototypes is that I feel there's a lot more similarities with them and open wheel cars versus if Jaden was to go off and do a bunch of GT3 and GT4 racing.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a feel advantage that I think you get in that regard, especially with how the car behaves in a way compared to those really quite heavy and beefy GT3, GT4 cars. So, absolutely so. I think it's going to give him an advantage in that regard, and it's certainly not holding him up at all. Kingston Himes is just continually falling behind. He's now nearly 5 seconds back as Cortese and Lucio swap again down in towards the turn 10 chicane. But while they do that, Brent Ruiz is trying to defend from flowed arms here, and really, even though the trains got broken up pretty early on, they've kind of formed a little bit back together again.
Yep, I'm looking forward as well to these final couple of laps when maybe these groupings all just start to actually work together. Ooh, that was Cortese almost off and into the grass for a moment there. I mean, the level of commitment in these cars, you're talking about a slight lift through turn 1, maybe down a gear if you're really in dirty air, and then just back onto the power as early as you can to then bring the speed up. And oh, mistake from Cortese, too much through turn 5. I think that's going to be steering damage without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, it didn't look comfortable, did it? It looks like he might be alright, looking at the wheel there, but either way, he's lost a lot of time to losing up in front, and he's got to be careful of Gilles Hubin behind him as well. Brent Ruiz not far either, and you can see him right on the rear wing. Is Brent Ruiz trying to make his way through, but we can look at it again, coming through. Oh, and that is a big old bump. Oh, wow.
And that's what we mean by level of commitment. Brent Ruiz and Gilles Hubin switching around down into turn 10A. It's the 4 machine back to 6th, and now 2.6 behind Cortese, who is he going to come down to pit lane? No. Clearly thinks he's got enough speed in that car to stay out there on track, and we'll keep an eye on the progress being made as once more we are seeing traffic be a bit of a factor here. Now here's Diego Ralla, Danny Bray chopping and changing further back. Now these are drivers, in Danny Bray's case, up 10 positions already so far.
Yeah, some fantastic starts. Manuel Gonzalez up 11. I mean, with a bigger field, 27 cars on the starting grid, it was possible for you to gain a few more positions, and we saw those big pile-ups at the start. It's allowed the likes of Danny Hugendorn to gain 9 positions off the starting P17, and full credit to him for doing so. Manuel Gonzalez from P22 to P11. Fantastic work from him so far, and there's still some laps to go to make even more spots.
6 positions gained for Lucio. Oh, that's another driver, Danny Bray, getting very close to the turn 5 wall. I think also shows how important it is to not to make those moves happen at the start of the race and to not lose too much time, because if you get caught up behind some of the other chopping and changing that we have been seeing, you don't get the opportunity to necessarily work your way closer. 8 minutes left to go. Jaden Munoz has run away, as we've talked about. I think, because we haven't seen too much of him, it might still be 7 laps to go. We're talking 72-second lap times here.
Yeah, fantastically fast lap times. This is what you expect from these nippy little cars. Of course, they turn exactly as you'd like them to. Coming down the S's, you can see left, right, left, as they all just dive their way down the hill. And yeah, fantastic machinery for these guys to drive, and you can just see them flying through turn 5 there. It looks fantastic, and Lucio is right on the back of Kingston Himes now. He's going to be eyeing up P2 pretty sharpish. And
I know you can't make direct comparisons to the real world, but you know, we're talking LMDH times that are around 1:11, so we're not far off of that necessarily. So these Super Formula lights are, you know, in that sort of ballpark in terms of performance and the ability you need to control them. Lucio using that draft, and he's almost into the grass as well. Didn't want to go to the inside. That was interesting. I think he expected Kingston Himes to be a bit more defensive, and there comes the look back under the brakes. Not going to force the issue, though. It's through to second. 7 minutes left to go to hold on to this spot.
Yeah, fantastic work from Marcus Lucio. He's really worked his way through the field. Clearly an unsatisfactory qualifying position, but I don't think it's quite over yet, because I think Kingston Himes coming back at him down at turn 1, and I think he might get that move back. But look at Gonzalez, he's now up 10 as they dive their way through the final couple of corners. We've got Scattergood right in behind looking at this fight as well, but Maxime Petitot is going to be feeling the pressure, I think it's fair to say.
Side by side down through the S's. I mean, the thing is here, it's consequential if they crash, and it's consequential because that was Luzio off and into the wall, and somehow GR86 is back into the fight. He's through and through to second.
It's Christmas come early, or it's Easter come early, a couple of days early for him. He's got some gifts, a couple of positions worth of gifts. He's up to P2 now, GR86. Just the littlest of contact between Hines and Luzio means that they are now fighting their way back up for P2, really. So they've got a lot of work to do, but here comes Luzio once again.
It's going to be, I think, Cortese now just trying to hold on with all he's got. Last time by did a 1:12.4, so really didn't lose that much time actually after hitting the wall. It might just be a bit more compromised in terms of straight top-end speed. Now, there's your leader, off and into turn one. He's already crossed the line, so with just over 5 minutes left to go, I think we are definitely into the final 5 laps. I'm not sure if it is going to be close to maybe being 4, but I don't think it will. So, Brent Ruiz. Oh, Luzio's off at 1.
And that's a big old hit into the wall, and that'll be realistically race over from Luzio. He had such a good start after a poor qualifying, but it's not going to work out for him. Going to slip all the way down the order and fall a long way outside the top 10. It gives a great chance to the likes of Brent Ruiz, Gilles Hubin here for P4 as they work their way through turn 5 once again. But, I mean, Jaden Munoz out in front. Everything's happened behind him, but he's been so calm and deliberate with how he's been driving up front.
And it's a sign as well of, you know, after leaving Hydro Race Geodesic Racing to join Williams Esports, it's just continuing to grow in maturity and speed and experience as well. 3 very, very important factors as we continue to move forward in the year. Now, Brent Ruiz is going to get alongside of Kingston Himes, and Gio Cortese is gone and has flown away with a bit of a gap and taken advantage. So Ruiz now up 7 to a podium spot. Fighting behind as well. This is the thing, right? We've been talking about how much action there is. Now, what action's really going to matter? All of that action towards the mid-pack at the tail end of the field slightly earlier on, drivers that were able to avoid being involved are now taking advantage.
Yeah, they are, and we're looking at Soto here coming through the final couple of corners. Kingston Himes got overtaken there by Gilles Hubin, but don't count out Danny Hugendorn right at the back of this battle, currently P7. He started 17th, but he's only about 2.5 seconds off of a podium position, so he might have a little bit of a late race charge here on his hands as they work their way through now. Manuel Gonzalez trying to dive his way through the S's now. He's got Ben Scattergood just in behind him, but he's trying to chase after Maxime Petot, but a great race from him as well in the number 14 car, so some good performances clearly on show, and shows that qualifying isn't really everything in these Super Formula Light cars.
One thing just to note is that I'm still not quite sure why, to be completely honest, but Marcus Luzio is still running around the track with that broken and damaged car, maybe just trying to get within a couple of laps of the finish and then bring it in. He will have to come down in a couple of laps with the damage before he gets disqualified. Flo Dam's the next to pass Kingston Himes, so still bleeding 2 or 3 seconds a lap is that number 22 machine. As next in line, Hugendorn will get that 6th position as a result, and I think Javier Soto will also get that opportunity with 3 laps still left to run for the 22 to drop down the order. That's got to be painful.
Yeah, such a good qualifying performance as well from Kingston Himes. P3, but oh, it looks close. He's going to lose it on track here as Hugendorn around the outside at turn 2. Not quite got it at turn 3, but you can see he's got a lot more pace in that car, and he'll be trying to work his way through wherever he can, looking for it all the way down through the S's. But I think he'll have to wait maybe to turn 6 to make the move as Himes goes a little bit wide there, but I don't think Danny is close enough here. But some great racing. Outside line, maybe this will be brave.
Be very, very brave. I mean, Hugendorn's losing time to Flo Dams potentially to try and take another spot up the road. I did note that potentially Jaden Munoz slowed down slightly last time, but this lap by, so not sure if that was traffic related, as Kingston Himes' damage is going to see him drop that position eventually, but officially 2 laps will be left to go. It's a 1:13.435 for Jaden Munoz. That is officially a bit of a slow lap time for him.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, he's comfortably enough in the lead that it won't really worry him. Maybe just backing off a little bit, knowing he doesn't have to push all the way to the end now with such a comfortable advantage. But here's Ackerson trying to find his way past Javier Soto as they run their way back onto the start-finish straight. And there is a damage. Oh, I think that is the damage car that we were talking about a couple of laps ago. But Soto defending well for now. and he's only got a lap and a half now, really, to worry about with Attrition behind him.
Yep, that is Luzio, I can confirm. That's continuing to be quite stubborn and holding his car out on track now, as Javier Soto goes a little bit offline in some ways. He's going to go defensive. There was a puff of smoke out of turn 5. Not sure what was happening there. What I do know is Gio Cortese at one point I thought was looking comfortable in second. Definitely not as comfortable anymore, as he's now within 1.5 of Brent Ruiz. Coming to the white flag next time by. Ruiz is almost in drafting range and could get a slingshot into 10A on the final lap.
Yeah, but Ruiz has got to be careful of Uban just behind him, because Uban is right on his rear wing. Let's see if he tries to make a move down in towards the turn 10 chicane. No, going to stick in behind and wait for his opportunity in that bright yellow machinery. But will he be able to have the chance? Will Ruiz get that nice toe and that slipstream down towards turn 10 next time around? We'll see, but we've met the white flag.
It is the final lap of this race, and Jaden Munoz has run away at the front, was back down to a 112 on that most recent trip around, so clearly just a sign that maybe a bit of traffic playing its part. Now, Kingston Himes, what can he do to play defense here? Atchison's going to go the long way around. Can Javier Soto follow down through the S's? You got Maxime Petit, that's there as well. Manuel Gonzalez, Hughes building. It's going to get busy as well, heading down that back straightaway for the very, very final time. Luzio has finally had to take his toe back to pit lane. He ran around track for as long as he could. It was not going to end the way that he wanted. Emil Engdahl's had trouble. I mean, this has been absolutely wild. Everywhere we look, there's been something happening. And that's all without rain as well. I say everything's been happening, not up front. Jaden Munoz will lead from flag to flag and come out on top. Behind, there will be fighting. Gilles Uban uses the draft to get past Brent Ruiz. Side by side, Ruiz will get a chance out of the final couple of corners.
He will, but I think Uban's going to have this one as they run their way. He's going to hug the inside line because he knows that there's not really any point in getting the run. The line, as you approach it just around the final corner, and he picks up P3 in the end, and a fantastic drive from Gilles Uban, and he'll be very, very pleased with that one, I'm sure.
I mean, it was a fun race, chaotic race, but I think, you know, given that we had quite calm running at Winton, we were sort of owed that from Road Atlanta, especially seeming as though these cars with the fixed setup wasn't easy to handle, very, very difficult to master.
Yeah, and I think that's key tagline, I think, with this car. It's a lot of fun. It's quite easy to try and make that move. The slipstream obviously working well, but at times it can be a little bit more difficult, a little bit tricky on the rear, and we saw a couple of big incidents, and it just kind of caused a bit of a knock-on effect.
And well, after this, let's not forget that we're going off to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where there are not going to be as much margin for error. Let's put it that way. And it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers all get on through the Wall of Champions. Munoz victorious by almost 15 seconds at the end, and he did slow down a couple of times. Tried to punch in a fast lap at the end, so maybe he was cooling his tires, but also does get the fastest lap with a 1:11.965. Gio Cortese, through all of that, hits the wall at turn 5, grabs second by almost 3 seconds over Gilles Uban, Brent Ruiz, and then Flo Dams. Danny Hugendorn gets in front of Andre Atchison, Javier Soto, Kingston Himes, and then Maxime Petitot ran out your top 10. Give a bit of a shout out to Danny Hugendorn, plus 11 for him, along with Manuel Gonzalez down in 11, but somehow they aren't the biggest movers. Ben Scattergood is 12th, Martin Sierveld is in 13th, and then Andre Kulaside's in 14th. Danny Bray gains 12 spots to finish in 15th, and then behind him Simon Renand, Martin Alnodus, and then Diego Rala. Marcello Caruso, your final car on the lead lap. Emil Engdahl doesn't make it to the end, unfortunately. He needs a toe on the final lap, and then Marcus Luzio, Andrea Frazinetti, and then Latoro Marini, Fabio Berchtold, as well as Alexander Wenger, Jort van Wijk, and Callum Voisin not seeing the end. Well, an interesting race, to say the very least, and I am now very much looking forward to 7 days from today when we get to do it again.
Yeah, and I mean, particularly think down at the final chicane. I mean, the way some of these guys are bouncing over the curbs, they won't want to bounce over the curbs there because they will find themselves losing the front right wheel as they hit the Wall of Champions. But we're going to have to see how it works out here. A fantastic track, very different to Road Atlanta, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to it.
Well, let's go ahead and look at that schedule as well before we say goodbye, because It's an interesting one. We've got some tight, twisty tracks coming up, and then we'll close the season out with Circuit of the Americas and Watkins Glen Classic Blute layout being a bit more high speed and wide open sort of configurations. It's a schedule that I think is exciting, but let's be honest, I think both of us, Dara, look a little bit more at the GR86s and go, that's even more fun.
Yeah, I mean, the calendar is such tight, tricky circuits, but even with these Super Formula lights, the likes of Motegi, the likes of even the Hungaroring could be quite interesting in these cars and all of the circuits. Algarve could be a fantastic race as well, the Circuit of the Americas. All really intriguing, really, just to see how these cars work, because, of course, new to iRacing. We're not necessarily exactly sure how they're going to race at different circuits, but this calendar is going to give us a really good idea.
Well, let's wrap things up and let's look forward to great racing a week from today. Primetime's always exciting, and we look forward to seeing some new faces along for the ride in a week's time. For all of us behind the scenes at RaceSpot, for Dara Thacker alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week. For now, so long and goodbye.